itself. But the question is, why is Donald Trump targeting India? Is it about leverage or just another dangerous tantrum? Either way, it fits a pattern. From 1971 to sanctions after Pokhran, we'll tell you about Washington's long history of trying to bully India. But times have changed. India is not backing down, it is building new partnerships. The latest with Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the Philippine president is in India. Defense, maritime security and the Indo-Pacific are on the table. Meanwhile, a tragedy in Uttarakhand, a deadly cloudburst has swept away a village. Rescue teams are racing against time. In West Asia, Benjamin Netanyahu wants to take over Gaza. Will anyone stop him? In Ireland, Indians are under attack. We will tell you why. And finally, Elon Musk is getting a $29 billion payday. Yes, billion. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. In India, flash floods batter the northern state of Uttarakhand. 2 cloudbursts triggered the floods, killing at least 4 people. Many more are missing. The raging water swept away several houses. The army has joined relief and rescue operations. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has promised all assistance to the Himalayan region. The Indian Supreme Court is likely to hear a plea on Jammu and Kashmir's statehood on Friday. Today marks the 6th anniversary of the abrogation of Article 370, which gave Jammu and Kashmir its special status. In 2023, the top court had upheld the centre's decision to revoke it. Last year, assembly elections were held in Jammu and Kashmir after a decade. In Pakistan, many supporters of Imran Khan arrested along with some members of parliament. Their detention came ahead of protests calling for Khan's release. The former Pakistani Prime Minister has been in jail since August 2023. He is accused in dozens of cases that he claims are politically motivated. Bangladesh's interim leader Mohammad Yunus calls for reform as thousands rally to mark 1 year since Sheikh Hasina was ousted from power. Last August, a student-led revolt ended the former Prime Minister's 15-year rule. Since then, Bangladesh has been in political turmoil. Elections are slated to be held in the country in February next year. And Switzerland's president and economy minister rushed to the US. It's a last-minute push to stop steep new tariffs imposed by US President Trump. Switzerland faces a 39% duty, which is among the highest. Washington is a key trading partner for Bern. Trump's new tariffs are expected to come into force from Thursday. India has taken off its gloves. No more unofficial comments, no more subtle jibes. New Delhi has decided to directly call out Donald Trump. If you follow India, you know it's rare. Our foreign ministry is very non-confrontational. We rarely criticize our partners. But just like all countries, India too has red lines, and President Trump has crossed them. He and his allies have accused India of funding Russia's war. He is also threatening higher tariffs. And I don't mean the 25% tariffs already announced. Trump says he will hike the tariffs again in 24 hours. Because he claims India is fueling Russia's war machine. At first, New Delhi tolerated it. But yesterday, the government hit back. Let me quote from the Indian statement. India began importing from Russia because traditional supplies were diverted to Europe. The United States at that time actively encouraged such imports by India. The targeting of India is unjustified and unreasonable. Like any major economy, India will take all necessary measures to safeguard its national interest and economic security. India has 3 main arguments here. Number 1, buying from Russia was not a unilateral decision. It was the result of prevailing politics. When Russia invaded, Europe scaled back energy purchases from Moscow. Instead, they started buying from West Asia. Now, this presented a problem because India bought its energy from West Asia too. Imagine if India and Europe competed for the same West Asian oil, what do you think would have happened? The prices would have increased. Consumers across the world would have felt the shock. So what did India do? We decided to buy from Russia. India balanced the demand and supply in the energy market. At that point, even the US was on board. In fact, they encouraged India to buy from Russia. Listen to the former US envoy to New Delhi.
They bought Russian oil because we wanted somebody to buy Russian oil at a price cap. That was not a violation or anything. It was actually the design of the policy, because as a commodity, we didn't want oil prices going up. And they fulfilled that.
They encouraged in 2024, but they want us to stop in 2025. That's India's first argument. Number two is the double standard. India has listed out Russia's business with the West, things like gas purchases, rare earth deals, fertilizers. We'll explain them in detail later on. But the point is this: if you can buy from Russia, why can't we? Which brings us to the final argument. India says it will protect its national interest and economic security. And this argument is not based on logic or hypocrisy. It is rooted in sovereignty. India is saying, we do not care about your lectures. We have 1.4 billion people to take care of, so we will do what has to be done. And it's not just the foreign ministry. Even the Indian Army has joined in. Look at this post by the Eastern Command. It's a newspaper clipping from 1971. It was published in the build-up to the liberation war of Bangladesh. And look at the headline. US arms worth 2 billion shipped to Pakistan since 1954. Now, this is a rare jibe by the Indian Army. Think of it as a reminder to the Americans, a reminder that they armed Pakistan in the last century, yet we beat them thrice. All these moves make one thing quite clear. India has lost patience with Donald Trump. It does not appreciate his tone or his threats. In fact, even his own allies are questioning his approach. Like his former UN ambassador Nikki Haley, she points out an obvious flaw in Trump's policy. He is yet to impose tariffs on China. He has given them a 90-day pause. This is the same China that buys oil from Russia, that also buys oil from Iran. Yet China gets a free pass, but India is targeted. Nikki Haley has questioned this approach. She says Donald Trump should not burn a bridge with a strong ally. But will the US president listen, or is it too late? Should we expect India to change its approach? Recent reports do not suggest it. Indian officials say there is no curb on Russian crude. Even this weekend, at least 3 ships offloaded Russian crude in India. So there is no plan to shut that tap. And even if there was, India has other options. We import energy from dozens of countries, so there is no reason to worry. But Russian oil is just one part of Trump's complaints. The bigger issue is tariffs. There is no trade deal between India and the United States, so Trump is imposing 25% tariffs on India. How is New Delhi preparing for that? The government is readying a plan to protect exporters. It is expected to be launched by September, that is next month. Its budget will be 20,000 crore rupees. 20,000 crore Indian rupees, which is 2.3 billion US dollars. And what will this plan do? It will try to protect Indian exporters from the tariff fallout. We are talking about things like cheaper credit, easier regulation, better logistics, and a boost for brand India. The hope is that this will prop up Indian exports. If we can't sell to America, maybe we can sell elsewhere. That's the first part of India's plan. The second is to capitalize on the domestic market, the Indian market. We have 1.4 billion people at home. That's more than the combined population of the US and Europe. Yes, the purchasing power is not the same, but the sheer size is significant. If Americans won't buy our goods, maybe we can sell some of them at home. Prime Minister Modi is leading this campaign. He is urging Indians to buy Indian goods. So New Delhi is trying to cover all its bases. It has not shut the door for talks. It has hit back at unfair criticism, and it's also preparing for permanently high tariffs. This strategy requires a whole-of-nation approach. Let's see if we can pull through.
It doesn't matter too much whether we have a deal or whether we charge them a certain tariff.
Trump's double standards are in full view. India's response has laid bare the hypocrisy. He is accusing India of funding Russia's war while America's own trade with Moscow keeps growing. Let's look at the numbers from this year. US imports from Russia are increasing. We're talking about 2025. We're talking about the period when Donald Trump had already taken charge. This is with Trump as president. Between January and May this year, American imports from Russia have increased by 23%. And what is the US buying from Russia? Metals like palladium. These imports have jumped by 37% in 1 year. Then we have uranium. Uranium imports from Russia have increased by 28%. And fertilizers have gone up by 21%. In 2024, the US imported goods worth $3 billion from Russia. 90% of these imports are strategic. They're needed in sectors like energy, agriculture, and defense. And the US is buying them in large quantities. Take the case of fertilizers. Until May this year, the US had bought Russian fertilizers worth more than $800 million. That's a 60% increase from 2021. Then there is uranium. The US is buying uranium from Russia to fuel its nuclear reactors. And this is where Washington's hypocrisy becomes impossible to ignore. In 2022, they banned Russian crude and LNG. They sanctioned most Russian energy firms after the war began, 2022. Last year, they banned imports of enriched uranium. But they conveniently left loopholes. Companies were allowed to apply for waivers, and this route is open until 2028. So importers are using it, of course. They're seeking waivers and they're trading with Russia. In fact, America's uranium imports have jumped substantially. They have nearly tripled since 2021. And it's the same story with the European Union. They have imposed sanctions and left loopholes that suit them. Brussels has left a door open for Russian products. Their sanctions have a range of exemptions, from pharma and medical products to agriculture and food, and of course, energy. Again, let's look at the numbers. The EU-Russia trade data from last year. The European Union and Russia, their goods trade stood at over $70 billion, 70. Their services trade in 2023 was worth $18 billion. Now compare this to India's trade data. Last year, India-Russia trade was valued at almost $69 billion, which is far less than Europe's numbers. In other words, European trade with Russia far exceeds Indian trade with Russia. Yet their lectures continue. And oil is the biggest point of contention. That's all that the Western powers can talk about. They call Indian oil purchases immoral. They claim India is funding the Russian war machine. And this pressure campaign began in 2022, right after Russia attacked Ukraine. But by the following year, in 2023, the perception shifted. The tone began to change because India accepted a price cap. India bought Russian energy at a lower rate. It followed the price cap set by the West, by the G7 and the European Union. And this kept global energy markets stable. It ensured that Russia's energy revenues remained restricted. Back then, the West was the driving force behind this. It endorsed the price cap. American officials hailed India's position. Officials like Eric Garcetti praised New Delhi. You just heard from him. He was the US ambassador to India. And here's what he said last year. They bought Russian oil because we wanted somebody to buy Russian oil at a price cap. That was not a violation. It was actually the design of the policy because as a commodity, we did not want oil prices going up, and they fulfilled that. So the West supported India's oil purchases, but now 6 months into the Trump presidency, the old complaints are back. He's bringing back the same agenda, the same talking points, only this time they're louder. With Trump threatening more tariffs on India. This is not about peace in Ukraine. This is about Trump's politics and Western hypocrisy. The West sets the rules, breaks them at will, and then demands accountability from others. Donald Trump was a favorite in India, but now he is enemy number one. It's like a reverse Severus Snape from Harry Potter. The question is, what happened? Why is he targeting India? When he was elected, things seemed fine. India was confident of handling Trump, and Trump was positive despite the tariff rhetoric.
There is truly a special bond between the United States and India, and the world's oldest democracy and the world's largest democracy. I'm pleased to report that with today's announcements, the friendship between the United States and India is the strongest I believe it's ever been. I think our relationship is the best it's ever been between two leaders of the two countries.
I know today a lot of countries are nervous about the US, okay? Let's be honest about it. We are not one of them.
But 6 months later, it's a breakdown. Trump has called India's economy dead. He has warmed up to Pakistan, he has imposed 25% tariffs, and now he wants New Delhi to cut ties with Moscow. So what exactly is Donald Trump playing at? We can think of 4 possible reasons for why he's targeting India. 4 possible reasons. Number 1, it's a deflection strategy. President Trump is failing on multiple fronts. Therefore, he needs a distraction. At home, he is under pressure over the Epstein files. In Ukraine, President Putin has played him. In Gaza, Prime Minister Netanyahu has played him. So Trump is searching for an outlet, and India could be one. His MAGA base, his support base, has previously clashed with India. They unleashed racist attacks on Indian workers in the US. They wanted to cut down work visa permits. Trump had earlier shut down that discussion, but now it has resurfaced. The MAGA camp is jumping onto Trump's criticism of India. They want Trump to replace Indian workers. So that could be one reason for his assault. He wants to distract his followers. A second possibility is leverage. Unlike Japan or Europe, India is not desperate to get a trade deal. We have resisted Trump's pressure. He wants access to India's agriculture market, but India has refused to grant it. So maybe this Russian angle is just a negotiation tactic. He is using it to force concessions, and we've seen it before. Consider what Trump did to NATO. He attacked the alliance multiple times. He said he may not defend his NATO allies, but all of that was a pressure tactic. Trump wanted NATO members to increase their defense spending. And once they agreed, he stepped back. He attended the NATO summit, all smiles. So who knows? Maybe it's all a negotiating tactic to put pressure on India. Reason number 3, Trump wants to appear tough. In fact, that has been his brand since returning to office. In some warped Trumpian way, he's not tough on his rivals, he's tough on his partners. Look at what he did to Ukraine's president. He ambushed and insulted him at the White House. Look what he's doing to Canada. Trump wants to annex his northern neighbor. He wants to turn Canada into the 51st American state. Also look at Japan. Trump forced them to open up their prized rice market. It won't make much of a difference to the US, but symbolically it's huge. It makes Donald Trump appear strong and decisive. And in that context, India's case is not isolated. Trump is using his partners to make a point to show the world that he is tough. The only difference? India is not playing his game. Which brings us to the final possibility, the 4th reason why he may be targeting India. He's just being himself. Classic Trump. Nothing is permanent in his world. Most of his allies used to be his sworn enemies because Trump's relationships are based on transactions. It does not matter what you did in the past. It matters what you're doing now. That's all that matters. Look at his relationship with Ukraine. After that Oval Office showdown, we thought it was game over. We thought the ties would never recover. But look at them now. Trump is back to arming Ukraine again. Also look at Elon Musk. He publicly claimed that Trump was on the Epstein list. But turns out, days later, he donated to Trump around $5 million. So maybe this is how things work in the Trump world. India is just getting its first taste. Whatever the motive, the effect will be significant. Other countries are also jumping in. They are trying to shape the conversation, like Ukraine, for example. Ukraine says they found Indian parts inside Russian drones, specifically the Shahid series. Kiev has raised this issue with New Delhi, but the objective is quite clear: portray India as party to Russia's war. And on the other side is Moscow. They sense an opportunity to deepen ties with India. So the Kremlin has also jumped in. They have condemned Trump's threats to India. Russia says it is illegal and coercive. Now, New Delhi should be mindful of these variables. It is easy to get carried away by emotions, but now is the time to be careful, to be the adult in the room. India and the United States, two democracies, two major economies, two global powers. On paper, they'd be natural allies. But peel back the layers and the story feels one-sided. For much of their shared history, the US did not treat India like a friend. It treated India like a problem to be managed or a pawn to be punished. Take the 1971 war or India's nuclear tests. Washington behaved like a bully. That dynamic shifted over the last 2 decades, but with Trump's tariffs and threats, it looks like the bully is back. Our next report tells you more.
India and the United States, it has been complicated. Let's start in the 20th century. The Cold War was in full swing. The world had been divided into neat boxes: NATO versus Warsaw Pact, and capitalism versus communism. Washington had a simple test: pick a side. And India, it refused to play ball. India chose non-alignment. It wanted independence in foreign policy, a rare act of strategic maturity in a bipolar world. But America didn't see maturity. It saw disobedience. And it didn't like it one bit. So it did what it's always done when it doesn't get its way. It punished. The most brazen example was in 1971. Pakistan was committing genocide in what's now Bangladesh. 10 million refugees had poured into India. India stepped in, militarily and decisively. And how did the US respond? With outright opposition. Then, President Richard Nixon doubled down on their alliance with Pakistan. And to top it off, Nixon sent a full-blown naval task force, including the USS Enterprise, into the Bay of Bengal. A show of force meant to rattle New Delhi. Fast forward to 1974, India tests its first nuclear weapon, codenamed Smiling Buddha. And the US frowned hard. Sanctions followed. Technology transfers were blocked. India's space and defense ambitions were frozen. But let's not kid ourselves. This wasn't about non-proliferation. This was about control. Even after the Cold War ended, the distrust lingered. In 1998, India tested another nuke. And again, the sanctions came fast. India was denied loans and foreign aid. Washington's message was clear: how dare you defy us?
To limit the reach of it.
Things began to change in the 21st century. The Cold War was over. India's economy was liberalizing, and Pakistan's strategic value was beginning to wane. Washington changed its tune. Suddenly, India was a strategic partner. President George W. Bush signed the historic U.S.-India Civil Nuclear Agreement. Trade expanded, tech giants boomed, defense deals flowed. There were summits, handshakes, and even hugs. Obama called the relationship a defining partnership of the 21st century. Trump called Modi a true friend. Biden hailed the Quad. It felt like the page had turned. Yet, here we are again. Trump's new tariffs on Indian goods are just the latest sign that old habits die hard. What sparked them this time? India's reluctance to cut ties with Russia, its refusal to toe Washington's line on Ukraine, its insistence on buying discounted Russian oil. None of that matters. The message from Washington is the same as it was in 1971. Comply or face consequences. So let's call it what it is: the U.S. being a bully. When push comes to shove, Washington often reaches for the stick, not the handshake. And India remembers this. After all, history doesn't lie. The India-US relationship has always had two versions. One, told in speeches and grand messages, and the other, lived through consequences. India has seen both, and it knows which one lasts longer.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
All right, inside visuals coming in off the parliamentary meeting that we told you is taking place as we speak right now. The Prime Minister likely to get felicitated. The Prime Minister will also be addressing all the gathered MPs. This is a BJP-led NDA parliamentary meeting that you're taking a look at right now. The inside of the meeting, we were bringing you visuals from the outside a few moments ago. On and around the Prime Minister, Amit Shah, JP Nadda, Rajnath Singh, senior ministers of the BJP cabinet present in the front row right now. This meeting on your screens obviously comes after a considerable gap, which is why there is so much focus on it. Listen in.
Shri Harshvardhan Shringla ji, former foreign secretary
All right, as we told you a little while earlier, we're likely to see the Prime Minister give an address in a few moments from now. He's expected to speak on a host of current issues. These are all issues that the opposition has been raising the heat over. One obviously is the SIR, and what they say is the EC's alleged partisan conduct favouring the government. The Pahalgam terror attack, Operation Sindoor. Right now, we can see different leaders, MPs gathered there, being felicitated.
Yeah, please look at it. Thank you.
On your screens right now, you're watching as different MPs watch the announcer. This is the inside visuals coming in from the key NDA meeting that, as we told you a little while earlier, is taking place after a considerable gap of time. Now, we're likely to see two things take place in the next few minutes, according to sources. The first is that the Prime Minister is likely to speak, but also that he's likely to get felicitated by the parliamentary party over his government's response to the terror strike. There is also, but this is not likely to be discussed in this meeting, the vice presidential names and nominees.
On 22nd April,
that process is going to be kicking into full gear very soon.
A fraud and proxy of Lashkar-e-Taiba inflicted a devastation people in cold blood and segregating them based on.
Remember, since the 2024 Lok Sabha elections, the sessional meeting.
Amid the assault from Washington, India is working on new partnerships. As we speak, New Delhi is hosting the President of the Philippines. He is Ferdinand Marcos Jr., better known as Bong Bong. He arrived in New Delhi yesterday. He will be staying here for 5 days. Yesterday, Marcos met India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar. The focus was on bilateral ties. Today, there was a lot lined up. First, there was a ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. After this, he met Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The two sides upgraded ties to a strategic partnership.
आज का दिन हमारे द्विपक्षीय संबंधों के लिए एक ऐतिहासिक दिन है। हम भारत फिलीपींस संबंधों को स्ट्रैटेजिक पार्टनरशिप स्तर पर ले जा रहे हैं।
Our cooperation's tempo has increased in the last few years, and in security and defense, in trade, investments, health, and other fields of endeavor. I am elated therefore, today we further ratify this friendship by elevating it into a full-fledged strategic partnership.
Then it was straight to business. A string of important announcements followed. First was defense and maritime security. Both sides spoke of growing trust between their militaries, and it's not just talk. On Sunday, India and the Philippines held their first ever joint naval drill, that too in the South China Sea. So a symbolic move and a strategic one. India is already supplying the BrahMos missiles to Manila. And this could be just the beginning. More naval cooperation, more arms deals, everything is on the table.
इंडो पैसिफिक क्षेत्र में शांति, सुरक्षा, समृद्धि और रूल बेस्ड ऑर्डर के लिए हम प्रतिबद्ध हैं। हम अंतर्राष्ट्रीय कानूनों के अनुरूप फ्रीडम ऑफ नेविगेशन का समर्थन करते हैं। अगले वर्ष फिलीपींस आसियान की अध्यक्षता करेगा। इसकी सफलता के लिए हम पूरा सहयोग देंगे।
Second is digital infrastructure. India will help Manila develop a sovereign data cloud. What does that mean? It is basically a national data storage and management system that is not controlled by any other country. And it's a big move in this digital age, especially as cyber sovereignty becomes crucial. The two sides will also look at linking national payment systems. The third is trade. Right now, bilateral trade is around $3 billion. Both countries want to ramp it up. So they are looking at a review of the India-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement. ASEAN is a Southeast Asian regional bloc. It is an important market and economic grouping. Next year, the Philippines will be the ASEAN chair, so trade will be a top priority.
The economic sphere has been a steady engine driving our ties for 7+ decades. True to our strategic partnership, Prime Minister Modi and I have charged our economic teams to shepherd our commerce, now at the $3.3 billion in the last year, towards a continued upward trajectory and expanded baskets of goods. To this end, we have decided to expedite the work that we are doing to forge a bilateral preferential trade agreement.
The fourth is tourism. Both sides are granting tourists a visa-free entry, so Indians can now go to the Philippines visa-free and vice versa. There are also talks about direct flights between New Delhi and Manila.
Friends, भारतीय पर्यटकों को वीजा फ्री एंट्री देने के फिलीपींस के निर्णय का हम स्वागत करते हैं। भारत ने भी फिलीपींस के पर्यटकों को फ्री ई वीजा सुविधा देने का फैसला लिया है। इस साल दिल्ली और मनीला के बीच डायरेक्ट फ्लाइट्स शुरू करने के लिए काम किया जाएगा।
India and the Philippines have shared diplomatic ties since 1949. Culturally, the connection runs deep. Politically, there were visits and gestures. But for decades, there was very little substance. In 1991, India launched its Look East policy, an effort to engage Southeast Asia. Prime Minister Modi upgraded it to the Act East policy in 2014. But Manila still stayed at arm's length. That posture changed only recently. The turning point, in fact, came in 2022. The Philippines signed a $375 million deal with India, a deal to buy the BrahMos missile. Manila became the first foreign buyer of the Indian BrahMos. In April this year, India delivered the second batch of these missiles, and that has cemented ties. Manila now sees New Delhi as a serious defense partner. Like I said, we saw more proof of that this week with the first ever joint naval drills in the South China Sea. So what has changed? What prompted this shift? What brought these two countries together? A common adversary in China. Beijing is expanding its claims in the South China Sea. It is attacking Filipino vessels. It is encroaching on Filipino territory. Manila has been assertive about defending itself. So it is diversifying its defense partners. And India has stepped in at just the right time. New Delhi wants to be a key player in shaping the Indo-Pacific. And the Philippines, like I said, wants to diversify its options. Right now, it relies on the US for defense. But the US under Donald Trump is not a dependable partner. Look at what they did with Taiwan. The Taiwanese president wanted to visit the US, but Trump reportedly killed that plan because that would have upset China. Manila would have watched those developments and worried about its own dependence on the American security umbrella. So it makes sense to partner with other major powers. Enter India with its affordable and effective military supplies and shared security goals. For New Delhi, this partnership is about a stronger foothold in Southeast Asia and a diplomatic win against China. You see, the Indo-Pacific is the new power theatre. If you want to shape it, you cannot stay on the sidelines. So India and the Philippines are making sure that they are in the game. Plus, the optics are good. President Marcos is going beyond New Delhi. He is visiting Bengaluru, India's tech capital. That's where the cloud and fintech partnerships will take shape. So this state visit is not a diplomatic courtesy call. It's a strategic reset. For years, India and the Philippines were friends on paper, but now they're turning into partners. This time, they're not just making statements, they're making moves on land, at sea, and in the cloud. Now let's shift our attention to northern India, where an entire town was swept away in the Himalayas. There was a massive cloudburst in Uttarkashi, a district in the Indian state of Uttarakhand. The cloudburst triggered flash floods and unleashed a deluge down the hill. Take a look. You can hear the locals screaming in the videos. They had no prior warning, no time to run or find shelter. At least 2 cloudbursts have been reported from this area in less than 24 hours. There are many dramatic videos. They show muddy waves crashing through the streets and sweeping away shops, homes and buildings. At least 4 people are dead, but dozens are feared trapped under the debris. Rescue teams are at the site, including teams from the army and the disaster response forces. They have a tough challenge on their hands. Connectivity to the flood-hit area is poor, and more rain is predicted in the coming days. Here's what we know so far.
This was the moment when the raging floodwaters tore through everything in sight. Homes, shops, hotels, lives, all swallowed in seconds. This is Dharali, a popular tourist destination in the northern Indian state of Uttarakhand. It's known for its mountain views and resorts. Now, it's been reduced to debris and devastation. The time was 1:30 p.m. The Kheer Ganga river, swollen by relentless rains, turned violent. Tons of muddy water thundered down the slopes. It swept across roads. It engulfed buildings and buried entire shops. Eyewitnesses say the surge came without warning. There was no time to run, no time to save anything. Within seconds, everything was gone. Hours later, a second cloudburst was reported. It happened just kilometers away, in Suki Top near Dharali. There could be dozens still trapped under the debris. Among the structures caught in the deluge was the ancient Kalp Kedar temple. Locals believe it has been severely damaged. It now lies beneath thick layers of slush, its condition still unknown. Help is on its way, but the path isn't easy. Dharali lies in a remote corner of the Uttarkashi district in Uttarakhand. Access is difficult, connectivity is poor, and the rains haven't stopped. District officials say communication lines are patchy. Rescue workers are battling not just the debris, but also the weather. Despite the challenges, the response has been swift. Personnel from the Indian Army and the Indo-Tibetan Border Police, or ITBP, are on the ground. They were among the first to reach Dharali. They are pulling out survivors, assessing damage, and looking for anyone still trapped. The village lies just 2 kilometers from the Harsil village. It's home to a major army base, and it's a well-known tourist town. The hope is this proximity will help. The support will be fast and swift, and the injured will get the aid they need. India's top leadership has taken note as well. Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to Uttarakhand's Chief Minister. He's promised full support. He posted on X, saying, "I express my condolences to the people affected by the tragedy in Dharali. No stone is being left unturned in providing assistance." Union Home Minister Amit Shah also stepped in. He confirmed that 3 ITBP teams are already on site, and 4 NDRF teams have been dispatched.
सभी लोगों को सूचित किया जाता है गंगा नदी का जलस्तर लगातार तीव्र गति से बढ़ रहा है.
NDRF stands for National Disaster Response Force. This is a specialized force to handle both natural and man-made disasters. The hours ahead are critical. The ground is unstable. The weather officials are forecasting more rain, and the terrain is dangerous. This is no ordinary disaster. It's a challenge of access, and it would require more coordination at scale.
We've been covering Gaza every day since last week, and the reason is simple. The situation was too dire to ignore. Starvation had set in, global opinion was shifting, all indications were that something would give. And it appears that something is about to, but not for the good. Reports say Israel is moving closer to occupying Gaza. And I mean all of Gaza. Right now, they control around 75% of the Gaza Strip. Israel has not ventured into the areas where hostages have been held. But with a full occupation, that will change. It could lead to hundreds of deaths and more suffering. So when will Israel pull the trigger? Officials say Netanyahu has made up his mind. He needs his cabinet to sign off. The Prime Minister was planning to convene it this week, but new reports say it's been postponed. Why? Because of divisions. Netanyahu's cabinet is deeply divided on occupation. His far-right allies support it, but a lot of key figures do not. Like Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar and Israel's army chief Eyal Zamir. Reports say Zamir is opposed to the occupation plan. He has 2 main worries. One, a full occupation will endanger the hostages. Hamas will have no reason to keep them alive. And 2, it's a high-risk operation. We are talking about storming Hamas strongholds. Chances are it will lead to many casualties, and for these reasons, the Israeli army chief is not on board. But Netanyahu's allies do not care. They're floating the idea of firing him, basically getting a new chief who will get the job done. And what about America? Is Donald Trump okay with this plan? Washington has not commented yet, but their peace push has certainly stalled. Trump's envoy admitted that his proposals had failed. So once again, it comes down to Netanyahu. He's keeping his cards close to his chest. Yesterday, he spoke about 3 goals in Gaza.
These achievements, of course, are behind us, but it is still necessary to complete the defeat of the enemy in Gaza, to release all our hostages, to ensure that Gaza will no longer pose a threat to Israel. We are not giving up on any of these tasks. We will do it together through the great sacrifice of our male and female fighters.
This is a U-turn for Netanyahu. When the war started, he had ruled out occupation. In fact, listen to what he said in November 2023. We don't seek to govern Gaza, we don't seek to occupy it, but we seek to give it and us a better future, and that requires defeating Hamas. Clearly, that has changed. Netanyahu is closer than ever to occupation. If he goes ahead, it would turn back the clock. Israel captured Gaza in the 1967 war. They went on to occupy it until 2005. Around 20 years later, we could be going back to square one, and the consequences could be deadly. Gaza has already been devastated by 22 months of war. Another escalation is unjustifiable. Because look at the scenes there. Aid officials have compared it to the Hunger Games. That's how desperate the situation is. Only a fraction of the required aid is entering. As a result, distribution is chaotic. Just look at the scenes around aid trucks and airdrops. It's not just a clamor. Aid seekers are also being targeted. The United Nations says at least 1,000 of them have been killed by Israel. Their army has usually denied it, but new videos expose their tactics. It shows Gazan children fleeing bullets near aid sites.
مزعجينهم يا ابو اللي سوى فيهم يا حرام.
And this is before occupation. Imagine the situation after. Militarily, it does not make any sense, which is why Israel's army chief is not on board. He knows the risk of such an operation. It's almost like abandoning the hostages completely. A much better option is a deal, a ceasefire in exchange for hostages. That's what tens of thousands of Israelis are also demanding. That's also what many in Netanyahu's cabinet want. But the Prime Minister remains defiant. And the world should be fuming at this plan. Just think about the audacity. Your allies recognize Palestine. Most of the world asks you to cease fire. Your top ally criticizes you for starvation. And how do you respond? By planning to expand your operations. It shows that Netanyahu does not care about global opinion. Frankly, he doesn't seem to care about Israeli opinion either. It's a non-stop march to more war and deaths.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
All right, inside visuals coming in off the parliamentary meeting that we told you is taking place as we speak right now. The Prime Minister likely to get felicitated. The Prime Minister will also be addressing all the gathered MPs. This is a BJP-led NDA parliamentary meeting that you're taking a look at right now. The inside of the meeting, we were bringing you visuals from the outside a few moments ago. On and around the Prime Minister, Amit Shah, JP Nadda, Rajnath Singh, senior ministers of the BJP cabinet present in the front row right now. This meeting on your screens obviously comes after a considerable gap, which is why there is so much focus on it. Listening.
Shri Harshvardhan Shringla ji, former foreign secretary hai.
All right, as we told you a little while earlier, we're likely to see the Prime Minister give an address in a few moments from now. He's expected to speak on a host of current issues. These are all issues that the opposition has been raising the heat over. One obviously is the SIR, and what they say is the EC's alleged partisan conduct favouring the government. the Pahalgam terror attack, Operation Sindoor. Right now, we can see different leaders, MPs gathered there, being felicitated.
Yeah, please look that side. Thank you.
On your screens right now, you're watching as different MPs watch the announcer. This is the inside visuals coming in from the key NDA meeting that, as we told you a little while earlier, is taking place after a considerable gap of time. Now, we're likely to see two things take place in the next few minutes, according to sources. The first is that the Prime Minister is likely to speak, but also that he's likely to get felicitated by the parliamentary party over his government's response to the terror strike. There is also, but this is not likely to be discussed.
Elon Musk, the richest man on earth, he has just had another huge payday, $29 billion. That's his new pay package, $29 billion. Quick refresher, Musk is the CEO of Tesla, the electric vehicle maker, and in 2018, he got a deal worth more than $50 billion. It was an audacious sum, $50 billion, the biggest pay deal in corporate American history, but soon a court snubbed it. A judge in Delaware rejected the package twice. Since then, Musk has been on the warpath. He has appealed the court. He wants the pay packet reinstated. He has threatened Tesla, saying that either he is given more stock or he quits. And finally, he's had his way. Tesla's board has given Musk a huge offer again, this time worth $29 billion. It is a fraction of Musk's prior agreement, but Tesla hopes that it is enough to make him stay. The board wants, and I'm quoting, it wants to incentivize Elon to remain at Tesla. These are their words. Simply put, Musk threatened to quit, the board got scared, so they are offering more money to keep him. But why? In recent months, Musk has not really been the ideal boss. Sure, the man is pressed for time. He has a huge business empire, including AI startup xAI and rocket company SpaceX. But on top of this, for most part of the year, he has also had a side hobby, playing sidekick to the US president. Musk poured millions of dollars into Donald Trump's campaign. Instead of building Tesla, he slashed government agencies, and then he birthed a PR crisis. He clashed with the president of the US on social media. The ugly breakup was for everyone to see. And these events put his company in jeopardy. They drew ire from people the world over. People protested at Tesla dealerships. They attacked Tesla showrooms and cars. Brand loyalty plunged, so did profits. In the most recent quarter, Tesla profits fell from over $1 billion to $409 million. So things have been snowballing for a while. Elon Musk has become a liability for Tesla. Then why is the company so desperate to keep him? Because he is the company. And we've seen this time and again. Back in the day, companies were mainly known for what they did. Brand names were synonymous with products. Photocopies were Xerox and moving stairs were escalators. But over time, there's been a shift. As technology advanced, companies became about the people who led them, the thinkers, the pioneers, the top bosses. In a lot of cases, they are the company, sometimes even after they leave. For instance, think Amazon, think Jeff Bezos, or Microsoft and Bill Gates. This is also why it is harder to let go of top bosses, so much so that some are fired only to be rehired. We saw that with Steve Jobs. Apple fired the founder in 1985 after a long-drawn clash with the board. Then they brought him back in 1997 because the company was struggling financially, and this proved to be remarkable for Apple. Their profits jumped. They became hyper-focused. It was a turning point for the company. You see, to build a company, whether it's smartphones or self-driving cars, you need more than just money or talent. You need vision. Big companies can hire the best engineers, the smartest strategists, and the brightest minds. but a visionary leader, that's harder to find. And that is why Tesla wants to hold on to Elon Musk, the man who built the company who turned a niche EV startup into a global force. As Tesla faces headwinds, it wants Musk to stay at the helm. But there's also another side to this. More and more companies are moving away from personality cults. They're focusing on systems, not stars. They're building teams, not just celebrating founders, because great companies are supposed to outlast individuals. So maybe it's time Tesla asked itself, is Musk still the wind beneath its wings? Or is he the turbulence that the company can no longer afford?
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwala. Top story, Uttarakhand is once again staring at a massive tragedy. 2 cloudbursts were reported earlier this afternoon, one near the Dharali village and the other in the Sukhitop area, which led to a massive flash flood. At least 4 lives have been lost and many more are unaccounted for. So the death toll could only go up. Horrifying visuals of the incident showed a strong stream of water flowing down from a hill. As you can see over here, ladies and gentlemen, flowing down from a hill and just crashing into this village, sweeping away many homes and roads. People recording the video from a distance were